negotiation items for the 21-22 school year pursuant to the exception for employer-employee negotiations under COMA, and the open meeting will resume back in the PAC at 6:50.
We don't have Cindy.
Oh, is Cindy here? So we can approve Cindy if she arrives, then we do that? Okay, okay. So with Mr. Dorothy and with Cindy Frick. Phil has seconded. All those in favor, please say aye and raise your right hand. Aye. Motion carries 7-0. We will enter executive session. And Megan, if you could send Cindy, that would be great. Thank you.
Are we in the side room here?
I know I had the same question.
Yeah. Where do we go?
I just wanted to make sure I did not forget to tell you that. I'll catch you later. They said, "You will not help her?" I said, "You will. She's just stuck in traffic." I said, "But you'll bring her in when she gets here, right?" Thank you. I think I did. Okay.
It's upstairs. It's upstairs.
So we're gonna do negotiations until 7, and we'll do personal at the end.
That's
Okay. I move we return into executive session with Mr. Dorothy and Cindy Frick to discuss negotiation items for the 21-22 school year pursuant to the exception under coma relating to non-elected personnel. And the open meeting will resume at 7 p.m.
Second.
Phil has seconded. All those in favor, please say aye and raise your right hand. Aye. Motion carries 7-0. We will call this meeting back to order for USD 348 Board of Education. At this time, may I have an approval for the consent agenda, please?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Chris is, oh, sorry, I saw his, sorry. So Phil has moved and Chris has seconded to approve the consent agenda as presented. All those in favor, please say aye and raise your right hand.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 7-0. All right, at this time, we get to have recognition. During our recognition time this month, we are doing our, or from now on, we're going to do our educational program highlight. And Dr. Craig Hare is going to tell us a bit more about that for what we're going to have tonight. I see Jill Boyle is here to join us, so thank you.
Very quick. Okay, so one of the things we always like to do is showcase how kids get excited about reading both in the classroom and out of the classroom. And so tonight we have Jill Boyle from the Intermediate Center, and they have a book club she's going to share with you. Hi. I noticed that on the agenda, second, that I provided a deed, and we're not at the end until letter N, so I'm going to try to keep it as quickly as possible because I bet nobody here came to listen about book club, so I'll make it short and sweet. I've been in private public education for over 20 years now. The last 10 years I've been the librarian at the Intermediate Center, and my second year in the library back in 2012, I had the idea to start a book club. For those of you who don't know, the Intermediate Center is 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders, so 8 to 11-year-olds. And they're at that spongy age where they're mostly independent readers, and some of them are just, really keen to reading. Some aren't quite independent yet, so it's a challenge for them to read the books that we use for book club. But my idea was to foster reading outside of the classroom, above and beyond what you're assigned to read. Book club means very school and it's free, so there's no transportation and cost issues. It's anyone who wants to participate. There shouldn't be any reason why you can't. Although it is open to all 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders, I learned quickly that incoming 3rd graders will join any club, even if it's the rubber band club or something. So usually the first books in the fall are just, I invite the 4th and 5th graders, and then as we get through the year and I get some of the 3rd graders, then I start inviting them to join us. We usually get 3 or 4 books read during the school year, and students don't have to join the whole year. Every 2 months, when I show the next book they're going to read, if it sounds interesting to them, they just take home a good old-fashioned paper permission slip, get permission from their parents, their teacher, and they sign it, and then I give them a copy of the book. And they usually have about 6 to 8 weeks to read it, but I try to encourage them to read it sooner so that we can get those 20 to 25 copies to more than 20 to 25 kids. The only problem really we've had, as a good problem, sometimes it's too popular, and there's so many kids who have read the book that book club is too big. So I sometimes have to split it up into 2 groups just to make it manageable and somewhat controlled chaos. I did look at it, and there were a couple of books that we had over 70 kids read the book. So it's like 25% of the kids in the school were all reading the same book. As far as expenses, the only expenses are the paperbacks that we buy and the kids borrow them and return them. So we're reusing them every 3 or 4 years within a group of students. And then the cookies and lemonade, because you can't have a book club without cookies and lemonade. In 2012, when I started it, I received $200 from the PTO and just borrowed books from classroom teachers and the junior high books that the junior high wasn't using anymore. And then the next 3 years, 2013, 14, and 15, I applied for and received grants through the Quality Education Foundation. So those 3 years is when we really bulked up and got our direction. And because we have a whole new group of kids every 3 years, we read most of the books every 3 or 4 years because the kids in the building weren't there the last time we read it. Since 2016, I just had to fill in a couple of books here and there, so I usually use the proceeds from our Scholastic Book Fair to buy paperback books when we need to fill in gaps. Two books I'd like to highlight out of the many books in our book club collection. The book that we read this year, instead of a normal year, we get to 3 or 4 books, but this year we have to do one winter. It's an autobiography called Small Steps by Peggy Harriet, and she's a fairly renowned children's author. She writes fiction, but this book is an autobiography. Back in the 50s when she was 12, she acquired polio. And so it's very relevant this year. The kids loved the book before when we read it 3 and 6 years ago, but this year it really resonated with them that during this experience as a 12-year-old girl who had to go to the hospital, away from her parents, couldn't go to school for a year, and then her transition back to school, and how difficult it was to be in a school that was not handicap accessible, and she was able to walk. So it was a great book to read this year. And then the other book that we will hopefully be reading this year again is Grand Canyon Rescue by local author Devin Musila. And she graciously comes to our book talks. She's done it twice now. And the kids get to talk to and meet a real author who's local. And she, that's the one book club that usually goes over time. We usually meet about 30 to 45 minutes, but she will answer as many questions as they have. And of course, she just keep asking more and more questions. So those are the two that I'd like to talk about, but we have a lot of books tonight. So I'm sure I skipped something about it earlier, but you guys have any questions?
No questions. Thank you. And since we're doing this during recognition time, let's just go ahead and add this too. The Baldwin City Board of Education of USD 348 supports and promotes excellence in all school activities. So on this day, the Board of Education would like to recognize, congratulate, and thank you, Jill Boyle, and the book club for these awesome opportunities at the IC. Thank you. All right, next up, we will have public comment time. Public comment agenda item, reading from the USD 348 board meeting procedure document, is the agenda time item, is the time for any student, patron, or staff member to have an opportunity to share topics of interest or just to make a comment to the board. This is the only time during the meeting that a person can discuss an item with the board and share their opinion. Generally, the board does not respond to topics shared at this time in as much as no background had been previously obtained and is not advisable to address situations without all the facts for the board members first. The board can, that's in parentheses, the board can really only speak when they vote. If a board member responds, it is only that board member's opinion, not the board as a whole. Audience comments may be relative to any agenda item, whether or not they are placed on the agenda, or it may be any topic of their choice. This is not a time to discuss specific personnel or student matters. Audience comments are limited to a maximum of 5 minutes. And also, if a delegation of persons comes to discuss a single issue, every attempt should be made to avoid redundancy and have each person state only new facts or new perceptions during their allotted audience time. We don't really enforce that part, but we want people to be able to speak. But we do have 5 minutes, and all that we ask from there is that when you step forward to the microphone, if you could just state your name for the record, and then you have the 5 minutes. So who would like to come forward and address the board? Go ahead, Camden. Sorry, I'm like taking away, you still get to introduce yourself, sorry.
Good evening, Ms. Kelly, Mr. Dorothy, and members of the school board. My name is Camden Cox, and I'm going to the 8th grade at Baldwin Junior High this year. I've spent the last 3 years involved in the student council as co-president, just student council representative, and then vice president this previous year. I'm an ambassador of AAPP, and I am very involved in both school and community activities. I'm here tonight to provide a voice for the students on your upcoming decision on the CDC masking guidelines for the following year. I know this is a discussion that will take place later tonight, and I would like to provide some talking points from a student's perspective. When last year started, the school year, there was a lot of fear about COVID, and you followed CDC guidelines and county guidelines, and provided safe schooling for anyone who wished to return to school, and then also the remote option for those who did not. And for that, I thank you. For me, I chose remote schooling not out of fear of COVID, but because I prefer not to wear a mask all day. I have asthma, and trying to breathe through a mask was for more than short periods of time. It's really hard for me. It was a tough school year for everyone. Thankfully, at the end of the school year, a lot of the recommendations changed, and and the mask mandate was lifted. And vaccinations were available for any adult that wanted one, and more research became available on the transmission of COVID in kids. And because of that, the state of Kansas, Douglas County, and you as a school district decided to lift restrictions for summer activities. We were allowed to participate in indoor and outdoor activities with no restrictions on members, and we were not required to wear masks for those activities. We were allowed to make the choice with our families if we would wear a mask, and I believe that is how it should be. Now, the school year is about to begin, and there are new fears about the new COVID variant. And the CDC has recommended that anyone unvaccinated, including all children, wear a mask. I'm here this evening to ask you to please consider giving all students and their families the choice to be vaccinated and the choice to wear a mask for the upcoming school year. Putting restrictions on us and forcing us into something that we aren't comfortable with, I feel that we're taking away our right to choose and think for ourselves. And for me, wearing a mask all day with my asthma and allergies makes it a challenge to breathe well. Knowing the advice of my pediatrician, I'm not going to get the vaccine. If we are forced to be vaccinated or wear a mask, for me, and I'm sure many others, we'll choose to go to another school district or a private school or possibly homeschooling. And I'm sure that many families are having the same discussion in their household as my parents and I are having at these times. As you go into your discussion tonight and make plans for the upcoming school year, please take what I said into consideration and not just for me and my family, but for every student involved in the school district. I can tell you from being summer activities, the pool and other community and school functions this summer, that all of us are happy not to be wearing masks and we want to have the choice to wear them at school. I thank you for your time and the opportunity to address this with you, and I hope you can make a decision that will satisfy everyone as we start the school year.
Thank you, Stanley. Who else would like to speak?
Hello. I think y'all know I'm Terry Mars, President Mayor Baldwin, and I have two high school daughters that would love to attend school full-time in person, no mask this year. Congratulations that kid got and spoke, you're very brave. Most kids feel that way. My kids feel that way. When I ask them to come speak, they feel like it's your job to do what the kids want and what's right for them. And I feel there is a new way. I also want to speak on the fact that I have served almost 3 full terms on the Baldwin Education Foundation Board. I finished this month of this year, finished 11 years. I'm extremely passionate about advocating for kids, especially ones that need additional support. They don't have the means to do so in all different ways. And appreciate what Jill has done for the school, and I wish there were more teachers that would do what Jill's doing and going and trying to provide these additional learning opportunities for children in our school. With that being said, I've spoken every time since last year about school being normal, no masks. The CDC guidelines have not wavered. We're still at 0.1% risk for children. It's almost zero risk. Even with the variant, that still doesn't maintain unchanged. We have the science, we have the data, we know what's happening. I think the choice for people to make it educated based on what we all want to do is important. I'm not saying I won't wear a mask. I'm just saying I want to be able to choose to wear one. I know that there are events going all over the world, but here in this country, here in the United States, I went to the Walmart, I've been to the mall, I've been to Shields. Everywhere you go, there's 1% wearing a mask. They have the choice. It's their choice. It's actually not the majority. 1% is not. I've seen many of you out with no mask. I know that you appreciate the freedom of choice. I hope that you will continue to allow for that freedom to exist in our school. every single adult that is in our school, that the teacher has a choice to make to get the vaccine. They've had that already, available to every single adult out there. And I think that based on these different things, there's a lot of factors to make a decision to allow for the choice. If something changes, all of us parents have the choice to make a change and to do something different if the risk changes for ourselves and for our families. And people should not come to school sick. I mean, I think that's the biggest thing, is just trying to do the best we can to keep it out of our schools as much as possible. People are going to get sick. Many of us have been sick with it. And that's another way of providing immunity. It's kind of a great thing in a way, to have immunity that's even greater and more natural. And I don't remember what someone would say, so thank you guys.
Hello, my name is Courtney Staffington. This is my first meeting in attendance. My oldest son is 3.5, and he's going to be attending his first year preschool this year. So I'm slowly dipping my toe in and wading into the waters of USD 348, the public school system. So I just wanted to get up here and basically put a ditto on the two previous speakers that we've heard. I can't imagine sending my 3-year-old to preschool this year with a mask mandate, which is what CDC would currently advise to in order to wear a mask. I can't imagine asking him to do that. He's not yet been obligated to wear a mask, and I would really appreciate some consideration to step away from that federal guidance and the opportunity to give our parents the opportunity to think and advocate for our families and what's going to be the best decision there. So I would just like to second that.
Thank you. Have another, yeah, go ahead and come forward.
They don't have to adjust this.
Okay. My name is Jackie Kennedy, and we have 2 kids that attend schools in Baldwin. We created a short survey for the parents that reside in Baldwin City so that they would be able to add their input based on questions concerning the COVID policies and the new CDC guidelines. We did not have much time to distribute, however, we did receive 144 participants. The questions and results are as follows. Do you reside within the Baldwin City School District? 144 said yes. Do you believe USD 348 should adopt COVID school policies based strictly on CDC national guidelines? 139 said no, 4 said yes. Do you believe USD 348 should adopt COVID school policies based strictly on Douglas County guidelines? 123 said no, 18 said yes, 3 under certain circumstances. Do you believe USD 348 should adopt COVID school policies based on community-based circumstances and parental input? 135 said yes, 5 said no, 4 under certain circumstances. Do you believe children, regardless of vaccination status, should be required to wear masks during in-class instruction? 139 said no, 3 said yes, 2 under certain circumstances. Do you believe children should be required to be vaccinated with the COVID vaccine prior to returning to in-school instruction? 143 said no, 1 said yes. Do you believe a child should be required to submit proof of vaccination as part of any policy that would provide for different COVID rules for vaccinated versus unvaccinated? 139 said no, 3 said yes, 2 under certain circumstances. Do you believe children who choose not to be vaccinated should be required to wear a mask during in-school instruction? 136 said no, 6 said yes, 2 under certain circumstances. And the last question, do you support a mask by choice policy for students and instructors independent of vaccination status? 137 said yes, 8 no, It seemed clear that the vast majority of parents who completed the survey want normalcy and choice for their children. I urge the board members to hear our voices loud and clear and allow parents to make the decisions for them. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak?
Hi, my name is Tori Yarkley. I just want to say I really appreciate the open forum that we had before this. I thought it was mostly good to let our community kind of have an open conversation with a few of our not more than 3 board members. So I just wanted to say I appreciate that. Like people that have gone before me, I would also like to see kids put back in school full-time with no restrictions on sporting events as well or extracurricular activities. I know my kids specifically do miss out on the skate parties or whatever it was that they were able to do in 2019, right? That was the right year. After hearing the statistics on where the kids who have taken the tests that we heard last meeting, I am begging you that we put our kids' education first and foremost and not the math thing. Like, yeah, it's important, and I think we've stated multiple times that we would again like our kids to go back to school 5 days a week, no restrictions, but we're here for education. That's ultimately why they're here. And I personally feel like we are missing the mark. As our data was presented last meeting, it was shown pretty clearly that we are struggling there. So as board members, I'm asking you to keep that in mind when going not only for the vote that's going to be done, but forward for this year to try and make up for what we've done this last year.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes.
Greetings, my name is Dan Martin. I'm very shy about speaking out, so this might be difficult for me. But Mr. Brown, you were asking about the science last time. You were concerned about hearing the science, and I did pass out the statistics from the Douglas County Health Department, which state that 45 years of age to 0, there were 0 deaths from COVID-19. This compares to similar demographics in counties where there were no masks. In fact, in age groups 18 and under, it's exactly the same, 0. That's empirical data, a control group, an experimental group. I hope that would be satisfactory for you. It's been the same data from March until now for a year and a half. Same, nothing has changed. I hope that's sufficient science for you. You're asking about the science about masks. There is no science about mask effectiveness, positive effectiveness. And yet you guys vote. One man on this whole stage, Dr. Harvey, said that he regretted the decision that was made last year. I regret the decisions we made last year deeply, because these kids were traumatized. They were robbed of a year of academic furtherance, and it will never be replaced. And if you won't take responsibility for that, I question your personality. I question your values, you know? Just say we made a mistake. We made a big mistake. We all made it. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak?
I'm Shiloh, and I have a soon-to-be 4th grader, soon-to-be sophomore, and I just want to say my daughters and I ended up with COVID. And a lot of you know my daughter, oldest daughter, Fisayo. She had it extremely bad, and I ended up having to take her to the hospital. We did not wear a mask. We actually was having a birthday party for my youngest, We were all outside. Few of us were inside on and off, but for me, I personally was okay with a mask because it also protected my daughters when they did go back to school. My girls were quarantined. They did perfectly fine with quarantine. It was not an issue. My youngest daughter's fourth grade teacher, absolutely amazing. Stepped up, did her job. I'm not for or against masks. I just think, you know, like everyone else, sure, it's up to the parents, but I just want to recommend that we stop. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I was scared to come up here and talk because I know how people feel. And I know how I feel, and I get bashed for that. But I just want to say thanks for everything that the school district did for my daughters. They were supported, they were not non-supported. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Are there any other comments?
Sorry, actually. Hi, I'm Jennifer Clark. This is my first time coming to one of these board meetings, so I really appreciate everything that you guys do and allowing us as parents to come and talk. My child is 7, he's getting ready to start 2nd grade. When my husband and I were trying to decide whether we would do in virtual or do in school for him as a 1st grader, I did a lot of research for his age group, and I was conflicted because I really did not want him to have to wear a mask all day long. I don't feel like they need to be doing that because the risk is so low for them. But the other thing that helped us decide to send him back to school, even though we were against him wearing masks, was that for that age group, so much of their learning is through social skills. And he couldn't get that at home with me. And we live out in the country, so we don't have close neighbors either for him to play with or anything like that. So that was our determining factor, that we felt his social skills were far more important than him trying to do schooling at home on the computer. But we did see effects of the, maybe the way that they were separated and whatnot. I know he didn't get to see his own best friend all year except for Thursday night soccer practice. And so, and it didn't dawn on me until tonight that we had ran into one of his errands or something, I'm not sure what it was, and I don't remember her name. But she made a comment about how quiet he was during the school year. And I went, are you talking about our child? And it dawned on me that our child, yes, he is a little reserved in a new situation, but when he is comfortable with his surroundings, like in his classroom with his teacher, he is not reserved and quiet and you know, any of that whatsoever. He's very outspoken. And I noticed that we were seeing behavioral issues at home in the evenings. It was, I mean, I understand they need to decompress when they come home, but it was more so than what I thought should be normal for him. And I think it was all a response to how they were being segregated, the mask wearing. It has a psychological effect on them. And, you know, he's not obviously old enough to get the vaccines, although they're going to be supposedly trying to push that soon. I don't want to do that personally for my child yet, but I don't want my child to feel separated because of the decisions we're making about his future health. I think if people want to wear masks and that makes them feel better and they want to follow that science, that data, that is wonderful. I think they need to have that opportunity. But I think we need to be allowed as parents to choose, again, as it was said, that, you know, there's no death in this age category. We need to be able to choose what we feel is right for our children and what we feel is good for not only their education, but their mental health and well-being, because that will stay with them for the rest of their lives. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
My name is Marina Hamer. So I came almost exactly a year ago to talk to you guys and present a bunch of statistics on the mental health of our children and how everything factored into that. And I encourage you to consider that in your decision. And I think the only point that I wanted to make was we have now the exact data from our school district showing how their mental health was affected. The drugs went up, the alcohol went up. More were increasingly depressed and had anxiety for 2 weeks or longer. And that's considered concerning statistics that I feel like we need to address. And I also encourage you with that. Like, I know we got an email that there was some additional mental health funding program going on, but really having the school counselors work with the students to figure out what works best for them and how, if they do need another resource, what that would be to help them work through some of those issues. Because I understand that the school counselor can't dive in to the depth that is needed for some students, especially as the aftermath of this continues to flow down. But my point was, I really just want you guys to consider the fact that the data was exactly in line with what we thought was going to happen.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
My name is Michael Kennedy, 2 students in the district. I wanted to give you a little bit of background about myself. PhD chemical engineer. I work for a pharmaceutical company developing human therapeutics. And I'm relied upon every day to make science-based, factual, logical-based decisions as it comes to developing those therapeutics and the risks involved. Now, knowing a little bit about background, as other friends do, and family, including my mother, they asked me what I think about the vaccine. I'll make one point about that, and it's just exactly what we found on there. I said the choice, determining whether to receive vaccines based on the assessment of risk of the potential disease versus the risk of adverse events for the vaccine itself. So the point here is that it should be a person's choice, or in the case of parents, the parents' choice, whether to vaccinate their kids, especially around this vaccine where the data is still coming in around the youth. For a disease that poses such a low risk to children, we shouldn't be compelled to vaccinate our kids when the risk of death, as we've heard, is very low. And then additionally, in terms of compelling people to get a vaccine, I'm unaware of any other disease where one person is compelled to get a vaccine in order to assuage fears of another person or the potential illness of another person. I think our health is still our choice in this country, despite the pressures that some people believe we should be putting on others. Second, yes, maybe a little political. I think the government bureaucracies, whether they be federal, state, global, have kind of demonstrated throughout the pandemic some erratic guidance concerning this virus and how to mitigate it. I think history will tell whether we've made the right decisions in the overall health of our nation that goes beyond health of COVID, but economic and mental health, as we've heard. So I beg you, please listen to our community, look at the real statistics that others have presented, and don't fall into the politics, which I think has dominated COVID responses for the better half of a year and a half as it relates to all the other things you see going on in our country. And finally, I think I don't believe there's any data available that says, I would say, requiring masks in schools to do anything to prevent anyone from getting COVID, especially when you're outside of school for 60-75% of the time, and you are not required to wear a mask or interact with other people. The vast majority of masks used by these kids are probably not being used properly, are probably reused or they should be reused, are cloths that don't get washed for weeks. And these are practically ineffectual for stopping any pathogen at this point. So as Tori said, I would say the board should focus on restoring education and focusing on that. I think that's your mission for this year. Getting these kids back in school, getting them happy, teaching them with in-class instruction, and leave the choices of health, whether it's be vaccinated or what they are breathing on a daily basis, to the parents. That would mean mask by choice, vaccines by choice. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak?
Hi, Tony Allen. I have two young kids that go to this school. One's going to be an 8th grader and one's going to be a 4th grader. And there was a lot of impacts on my kids that I noticed last year. And despite you guys' best efforts and making the decisions you guys felt was necessary, it did impact kids negatively. And I don't blame one of you or anything like that. You did what you thought you had to do. But just know that kids' mental health has been a big issue with this going on, and not being able to have their friends, the interactions, see facial expressions. There's a lot of times now that I walk up and I don't recognize somebody because I have most of the time I saw them with a mask on. And I think that these kids rely on being able to see each other's facial expressions and feelings and understanding each other. And I really do feel like that the kids need to go first. The other thing I want to remind each of you about is this is a small community. This is not Johnson County. This isn't Kansas City, Kansas. This isn't East Coast, West Coast, where the cities are huge. This is a small town. And we don't have to follow everybody else in what they do. You can take pieces and get the same result. You don't have to follow everything to the letter. We need to consider what the community as a whole wants, not what the loud majority wants. And the loud majority that wants to speak out about having us wear masks, I think that's a choice that they can make. I don't want that choice being made by others. I want to make that for myself, for my kids, my family. And I just urge you, when Douglas County makes their choices and the state makes their choices, to remember you guys still make a different choice, because we are a small community and these kids are going to have long-term effects if we continue this path. And one of those is going to be your guys, these kids being able to have the ability to build up antibodies on their own. And coming from a farming background, I know that my kids, myself, many families that we are associated with, we don't really get sick very often. And that's because we're out in it. We're out with the animals, we're out just being active and outdoors. And so, I'm not saying that we're not going to get COVID, I'm just saying that we have a higher tolerance and immunity to a lot of things. And so I just would urge you guys to consider not following what everybody else is doing. Do what's right for this particular community. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak?
Hello guys, my name is Sarah and I have 3 kids in the school district. We've got a 3rd, 4th, and an 8th grader. And I was thinking, like, what am I going to add? What's going to change their mind? What's going to speak to the people on the board? And I don't have anything more than what has been said by some very well-spoken, articulate human. It is nerve-wracking to stand in front of you guys, even though I graduated over a decade ago, and I should be an adult and not nervous in front of y'all. And I feel like we all felt that, but we all go down here on nights when we're busy. We got children that are texting us about what they're eating, and if they can go to their friend's house later, and can I pick them up from somewhere else tomorrow? And I guess my point is, if this many people stood up here to share their opinion, I hope it matters. And I don't get to choose which way you vote. I don't even really know what your job description is, if I'm being honest, and who puts you in place and how much one of you are here and how you're connected, because I see you in October. But y'all are responsible for the education of my kids, and not just the education of my kids from like a, can they pass the test on Friday, with education of like, can my 13-year-old develop good social skills? Or, you know, can she not even make eye contact with why even look at them because I can't see if they're smiling? I'm not supposed to look at my phone. And like, these things are real to our kids, education's real to our kids, but I guess my biggest thing is like, who died of COVID in our area last year? What did? And so, I know one that didn't want to die of suicide. Those are kids whose lives matter. And I guess the only point I have to add is that the decision for the rest of our lives doesn't have to be made today. We could give it 6 months, or we could give it a year, or we could give it until the statistics change, or the virus changes, or something mutates, and we get some empirical statistical data that shows us that being afraid, or, you know, that the cost of this is worth the unknown costs in the future that we have yet to experience. So I just say, maybe we just hold the course and let people make the choice. And if letting people make the choice, which is what I felt like this country was based on, if that gets us in the world of hurt, and we can change our mind. But until that happens, let's just go back on the basics of what we need to do, which is give people a right to respect their bodies, respect the way they raise their families, and respect that, because that's what, I don't know, I feel like that's how we all got here. So thank you for your time, and also I appreciate you all and how serious you take raising our kids. Those children are a lot of effort, and whatever part of the process everyone is in, I appreciate that. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Anyone else? Going once, going twice. Okay. All right, and we're not doing electronic public comment anymore, so we don't have to worry about checking that. So it looks like everyone's had their opportunity. Thank you very much for taking the time to do that. At this time, we're going to proceed through our agenda. We're now on item F, which is the financial report for 21-22 budget up first.
Yes, the 21-22 budget is in process right now. We have our KFE review coming up on Wednesday. And so at this point, what I can tell you is similarly at the highest will be flat. It looks like it's going to come in a little bit lower than normal. The LD, or supplemental general fund, the state recommended we assess a higher than normal delinquency percentage, not knowing if during COVID, if people would continue to pay their taxes, businesses would be able to do that. And so that, but that did come in at pretty much as normal, which meant the LD is ending the year with a high cash balance, which by default is trying to, lessen our tax liability for this coming year. And that's just the nature of that supplemental general fund we talked about before. It tries to, you can't, republish or make any changes. It will just self-regulate. If your cash is up, your liability is down. So I'll be talking to KFE about that on Wednesday. So at this point, we do need to publish the Code 99 for levy purposes 10 days before the August meeting. So we can handle it a couple ways. We could, if you would like to go ahead and approve the code 99 to be published pending KSDE review. We've done that a few times in the past. Or we could do a special meeting for August. Right before meeting.
Is this the, let's see, the resolution? Sorry, that's a different thing, because I have things in here that we have to sign afterwards pending our vote.
Right.
Okay. What do you guys think? Are you comfortable with a motion pending the KSDE review on Wednesday? Do you want to have a special meet? I'm saying I'm comfortable. I just want to check in with you guys. Okay, so we would need a motion then to.
Yeah, if you go ahead and approve to publish the code 99 budget upon KSDE review.
Okay. And Carrie has moved that the code 99 be published pending KSDE review. Is there a second?
Second.
Heard, okay. Chris seconded. All those in favor, please say aye and raise your right hand. Aye. Okay, motion carries 7-0.
And that application will just set the highest number of weeks that we could do. Of course, we'll come back in August and talk about what those really are that you want to assess.
Okay. Sorry.
This year for the legislation, we are to notify taxpayers via the county if we are exceeding the dollar amount of tax levy for USD 348 than what they paid last year. If the rate comes up to being flat, we will exceed that rate by just a little bit. If that supplemental general fluctuation keeps us lower, which it is right now, we will not need to exceed that rate. So we were talking about having a motion on this, but with the place we're in right now, I'd rather just go through the KSD review. We could let the county know that we may have to exceed the rate, but I can't tell you for sure how that's going to come out right this moment. So that's just an FYI. I don't think we want to do a motion. Mr. Gordon? Because I don't know how we would work it.
Well, I don't know how you have them do that.
Yeah. A motion is not required.
Okay, because it's pending on pending.
Yeah.
We can do one pending, but two pendings, I mean, to put it in simple terms. Okay, so we'll pause on that one.
Yes.
Okay. So, next.
Okay. We were going to look at the capital outlay plan again this month. At the end of the year, I did transfer about 150,000 of repair and maintenance expenditures from the general fund to capital outlay, which we talked about doing. And so I just updated the cash balance on the plan and also lowered the amount of the major spaces a little bit to make all of that work out. Otherwise, the things that we talked about last month. Were there any questions or concerns? Okay, so we would ask for approval of the 21-22 column of the plan.
One thing, just because I asked about this the other day and Gary explained it to me, but at one point we had a shed in this was like 3 years ago, I think. And behind the PAC, we had that built in the capital outlay, and I don't think that's there anymore, a storage shed for, is that something that is not on there? Because I can't break it down and look down into, it's just departmental, it's not here. Yeah, there,
We talked about that things got busy, we kind of decided.
Totally.
COVID and all that, we didn't get it done, but yes.
totally.
yes,
But is it
exactly.
in there now, or is it, because it looks, in some of the moves that were made, is that still there?
It is not.
Because it looked like it wasn't now, which is fine. It may be coming from elsewhere.
Probably, you know, I didn't know that had it gotten done.
Okay.
until just recently.
There's been some things going on. It's
So,
okay. Yeah.
But we do have it scheduled in there.
Okay.
$2,000 to cover those kind of things. that
Okay.
come up, so.
I just wanted to make sure if the moving that it then got placed somewhere else, because sometimes that can happen too.
Yeah, we
Okay,
can still move forward with that.
thank you.
Mhm.
Does anybody else have questions about the 21-22 capital outlay? Yay.
I hate to get too much into the meeting about this kind of stuff, but what are we doing with this source for hold this off?
Yeah, we are doing some minimal repairs to the tune of $50,000 this summer to replace, I think, 2 posts. And get them playable for this coming year. The long-term solution is 300 to 500,000.
So I wondered, that looks like it's 3 years away and that's.
And it's scheduled a few years out, so there's time to decide how to handle that. At the same time, we have a bunch of HVAC units that we need to replace at the IC and the junior high. So we have some decisions to be made. Yeah.
Any other questions or discussion on capital outlay? And so you're just asking for a motion for 21-22, correct?
Yeah.
That part of the line.
I move we approve the capital outlay plan for 2021-22 as presented.
Is there a second? Andy has moved and Phil has seconded that we approve the 21-22 capital outlay plan as presented. All those in favor, please say aye and raise your right hand.
Aye.
Aye. None opposed. Motion carries 7-0. Thank you, Cindy. Oh, there's more. Sorry. Milk bid. There's so much more. Sorry about that.
We have no bid for this new school year. We sent the bid documents to 3 different vendors, and 2 of them responded that they don't have adequate distribution in the area. And so one vendor, Highland Dairy Foods, did $39,373.30, and that is several thousand less than we had last year.
Were they the supplier last year?
They were not. The supplier from last year actually said they couldn't do it this year.
But we've used them before?
We have.
Are we moving on it?
Yeah, we do have to have a
That's it.
motion for
That's
that.
the bid.
Mhm.
Yes, so we need a motion to approve.
I move we accept the Highland milk bid for the 21-22 school year.
Second.
Susan has moved and Andy has seconded that we approve the Highland milk bid for $39,373.30. Is that correct?
Yes.
All those in favor, please say aye and raise your right hand.
Aye.
Aye. None opposed. Motion carries 7-0. Bus bid.
The bus bid, if you recall, we did not purchase a bus last year because of the changes we made. So this year, the bus is back on the schedule that we just approved. The transportation department has submitted a request. It compares 3 vendors, and this is a comparison done automatically by state program. And the low bid, before we added a couple things, as special items, were from Midwest Bus Sale. And then we're adding a security camera and some optional items, some brakes. And the total is $92,087. So if you would, we'll take a motion to approve a new bus for $92,087 for middle bus sales.
Is this the same? Oh, I think I'm working again. Is this the same company as we purchased from previously?
Yes.
Okay.
I move that we approve the bid from Midwest Busing.
Second.
Okay, Carrie has moved and Tony has seconded that we approve the bus bid for the new bus from Midwest Bus Sales in the amount of $92,087.
Yes, 92,087.
92,087, sorry. All those in favor, please say aye and raise your right hand.
Aye.
Aye, none opposed, motion carries 7-0. Contingency use.
Yeah, the last topic tonight, if you recall the high February gas.
Yes.
And that is still under dispute via KDSB. They think we're getting pretty close to resolution. I think we'll pay approximately in the middle between what we were assessed and what we paid initially, which was about $9,000 towards a $42,000 bill, I think. And so the logistics of general fund at the end of the year are that you have a zero balance in general fund, or if you don't spend it, you could encumber it if you spent exactly that amount next year. So we will hopefully not have to pay that full amount, and we don't want to give anything back to the state, okay? And so the solution that Craig wants us to do is to go ahead and move that encumbrance to contingency. And then we'll pay a portion of that amount. And then when the encumbrance is released for balance, it's fine. There's no. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we'd like to do.
So if we settle for less, does that money go back into our general fund then that we're holding in contingency or?
So what?
That's a quirky situation here.
Could do. I think we'll know pretty soon what the final outcome is going to be. So I still haven't closed the end of the year. So I should be able to make all that magically work out before anything is.
Okay. That's a very
So
correct.
yeah, I'll be able to, in the end, I'll be able to just cover the cost of the program.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
But basically, it's just a holding spot for it
It is.
that we are authorizing, even though we wouldn't normally do it that way at the end of the fiscal year and start, it's a holding spot for it. We have to make sure that, of course, it's accounted for correctly,
Normally,
so.
we're covering something, I mean, that's what we're paying.
Right.
Just waiting for the item to come in, or, you know, we have to do the order, something like that. So this is unique.
Mhm. Does anyone else have questions about this? Because this isn't something we normally have to.
No.
It's not your typical just outstanding payable kind of
Right.
situation, so. And so the motion you would need is just to allow you to use the contingency fund for the purposes of the encumbered.
The encumbered February gas bill.
Yeah, that's the wording we need. Okay, I move that we allow the usage of the February gas bill to be encumbered in contingency funds per the advice of Craig through the state, and that's all I need to say about that. Is there a second? That was a mess.
I'll second.
Your magic, Megan.
A second.
Carrie seconded. All those in favor? Please say aye and raise your right hand.
Aye.
Aye. None opposed. Okay, motion carries 7-0. I'm sorry, I totally jumbled that. All right. That is everything. Okay, and then the resolutions that we voted on during the consent agenda, just because some of them that is financially related, we voted on those during the consent agenda time. We do need to sign those resolutions before everybody leaves, so just mentioning that now. All right, thank you, Cindy. Okay, administrative reports, meal account guidelines. Oh, wait. Okay, you got that, okay.
So each year, in order to meet federal guidelines on meals, the board has to approve meal account guidelines for how that's going to be dealt with. So that's been presented to you. So we just need a motion to consider that, or if you've got questions or discussion about those guidelines, I'll try to answer those questions.
Any questions from board members?
I did not.
Okay. So we just would need a motion to accept the meal account guidelines for this year.
And move that we accept the meal account guidelines for 21-22.
Second.
Carrie moved and Chris seconded that we approve the USD 348 school meal account management guidelines as presented. All those in favor, please say aye and raise your right hand.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0. Curriculum review.
Gina.
We have shared with you 2 course update proposals for ELA and for history, government, and social studies. These are the future action items, which is have to review it in front of you now. The history, government, and social studies plan, we're asking for an approval of the syllabus. The course map is the pilot course that you need to go through in London. So we're just asking that the instructor will kind of map out exactly what this looks like for the weekly lessons, but the course syllabus is provided there. The one piece on there that may need some additional funding will be a book, so that you would like to use the 7 habits of highly effective teenagers as part of that course, and some of the leadership pieces of that. And then for ELA courses, this one is actually 8 courses that we're asking you to look at. This kind of stemmed from the retirement we had recently, so we have 4 ELA teachers in that department, and so we need to just kind of revise everything and just reconfigure what the ELA courses look like. So the teachers wanted to move to English 9, 10, 11, and 12 configuration. We also have the AP courses, and then also having the literature concept and real world reading and writing. Those could be for additional 0.5 credit if the student moves in, or credit recovery if we have to use additional credits that way. The updates on that really range from just a name change, creating, cannot be called creating, identity, license requirements, so we change that to honors English 9 and honors English 10. And then some of the courses just got revised, it's in the content and novels that teachers were using, since we didn't have the same elective courses, and we used to put into the English 11 and English 12 courses. So the teachers did a great job of revising that and kind of reworking that, but we are asking for one additional text in, let's say, honors English 10, and that's just an instructor preference that you would rather teach laws instead of not. So that would be the only additional funding that we would need. So if you could look those over, if you have any questions, please reach out to me, or if you could have English teachers, and we ask you to give us more caps for those, and then we'll come back in August and ask for approval of those. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, moving on to old business. We have the 21-22 handbooks in front of us.
Yes, just a couple, one addition that's not in your agenda. Cindy Frick was working on the grant for driver's ed that we have to fill out every year. They added a new policy that should be in all of our employee handbooks. And so we asked that each of the staff handbooks have this added to it. School employees will comply with the Kansas seatbelt use law and the child passenger safety laws, the Kansas safety belt use, KSA 82501, and child passenger safety, KSA 81344 acts while on duty, whether in a school or private vehicle. So they've asked that that be added to the handbooks in order to meet the needs of the grant. Well, certainly it's already law, so we've been complying, of course, but they would like it specifically in the staff handbook. Any questions about any of the handbooks? Cindy?
Anybody have questions about the handbooks? I don't know. I don't think that was me that time. If we're ready to approve those. It can't be that. If we're ready to approve those, we will need to, with the motion, then we would reference the policy that Mr. Dorothy just read, that we would accept the handbooks with the added seatbelt policy as explained. So. Everyone had a chance to review those?
Will this be as presented or is it as amended situation?
I think we have to do it as amended with that policy.
Tony, were you gonna? Gophers in the works up there.
We're in Baldwin, it must be squirrels.
Nope, I was gonna make the motion if you did.
Okay, got it. I move we approve all these handbooks as amended by Paul just now.
Second.
Okay, Andy has moved and Tony has seconded that we approve the handbooks for 21-22 as presented with the following included with each handbook as amended. School employees will comply with the Kansas seatbelt use law and the child passenger safety laws, etc. All those in favor, please say aye and raise your right hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, motion carries 7-0. All right, athletic facilities.
Last month, Mammoth Construction made a presentation to the board about athletic facilities in the district. So we placed this topic on the agenda so the board would have a discussion on what was presented and where the board might want to go.
So with this discussion, what we might want to do is think about, it's just an idea, shoot it down or move on to something else. It's just a thought, but we might think about, I mean, obviously in addition to how to potentially pay for it, compare it with our facilities plans, look at our holistic plan. Are there other things that we can do with such a structure? is it meeting the needs of the most students? Are there ways that it could meet the needs of more students? Outdoor learning classrooms. I mean, is there a way to look at it in terms of how it fits with our strategic plan, our newly developing strategic plan, et cetera? You know, just so that we're always tying any idea or decision to policy precedent or planning and not, you know, just making it up as we go along. I think everybody's open to continuing the conversation, but those might be a few ways that we could frame it as we move forward. I don't know. What do you guys think?
When you touch upon what I was going to say, we're in the early stages of developing a strategic plan. It seems a little cart before horse to start talking about financing the improvement until we know how that strategic plan might prioritize our needs.
Other thoughts? So why don't we keep thinking on this and kind of, because we are going to keep making progress on our strategic plan. And if our athletic director, put you on the spot a little bit, not tonight, but just as like a heads up in the future, you know, your input on that conversation would be very helpful at some point. But just so that we're not letting it dangle. We had a great presentation, and I think there's some exciting things about that, but also how does it tie into the other big picture of things that we are trying to accomplish? To take that then, you know, at some point if we decide to constituents. So, okay, anybody else have anything for athletics, athletic facilities for now? Okay, we can have it there on old business for next month too, and come back to it. Ionizer update.
So from the last time we presented this, a couple of things that we've done. Most certainly, we wanted to see what kind of testing we would do in our district. And so Wilden purchased the equipment in order to test for some of the things that the class action suit claimed. So they were testing for ozone. They were also testing for some volatile chemicals of various kinds to see whether those would be produced or not, because we wanted to find out ourselves where that is. Most certainly so that we can inform parents correctly what we have and don't have here. They were in this week to do some of that testing. Part of that testing is to run the testing equipment while the ionizers are running. And part of it was then to come back later and run the testing equipment when the ionizers were shut off to be able to compare those notes. The first thing, and most certainly we don't have the physical report. They did not have that ready for today, but I asked, I really need preliminary information that I can provide the board tonight. In that report, no ozone was present on the instruments, no ozone. And then they also did a test for the volatile chemicals. On that, there was one chemical that hit 0.1 parts per million, and that was formaldehyde. Most certainly that was present in both when they did the testing with the ionizers on and with the ionizers off. They were about the same on that. In order to give a comparison, OSHA's number on what's appropriate for formaldehyde, which occurs naturally in the environment, their number is 0.75. If you're over that, then it has to be mitigated. In this case, it was 0.1 or less. 0.1 was in one place that they tested it. The rest of them were less than that where they tested it. There were some others, they were so minute. They'll be in the report, but they were so minute in the numbers that they had. Now, with that, even knowing that, that's great, but I still say, for an abundance of caution, we need to leave them off until the case is settled. That would be the appropriate thing to do, because most certainly they'll go through that testing, do their own thing, comparisons within the court case. And I think that's what we should wait on before any of them get turned back on. So that would be the abundance of caution. So anyway, that's the update. Questions?
How many buildings did they test?
What's that?
How many buildings did they test? Was it
They
just
tested in one
high school?
because they really needed to see the ionizers. They tested in 6 different locations within the high school.
High school, okay.
So when did they say the full report would be? I know it wasn't, they weren't going to have it.
Within days.
Okay.
It just was not ready for tonight.
Okay. So then, and once we have the report, just as we did the first time when we became aware of this, we'll share it and let people know what's going on with.
Well, I think we let them know that this was the testing that we've done inside.
Right.
Most certainly, we need to wait and see how the court case comes out before we make a decision about it. And that's what we need to tell parents.
Correct. But just to tell parents where we're at, why it's not on, what we're doing, and then the update once the report is actually complete. I know these were, that way everybody's working with the same information.
Correct.
Okay. Any other questions? All right. So we can come back to that one next month too, because we should have the final information by then. And in the meantime, they'll stay off until we know more.
Correct.
Okay, so strategic plan.
Most certainly, Michael Kuntz was here and presented about the strategic plan. We most certainly need to set a time for a work session with the board to start working on the first steps for that. Michael contacted Jana and I and was ready to get that going. So at some point here, we need to schedule that. Part of my question tonight is how soon do you move forward?
And can we do it after tonight's meeting? We're fresh and ready to go. Just kidding.
Full on lighter.
Sorry, poor attempt at some humor. What do you guys think?
I think soon. I mean, I think if August is too soon, I think September would be a good timeline, but yeah, I think getting going on it would be helpful. It's gonna take months. So I mean, I feel like it's gonna take a long period of time to get community input, bring that back to the board for consideration, and get all those conversations kind of sorted out. But
What do you guys think about September? Because here's the thing, with all the other things that, you know, we have to do, I would really like August to be leftover stuff. You know, if you guys agree with this, but also what are the lengthy conversations that we need to have about the actual school year right now? I mean, I want to work on the strategic plan as well, but September seems more, I just don't want to fill up August to the point of we're not actually talking about August, you know? So I like your idea, Chris, about September, if you think that gives you guys enough time to kind of,
Oh, yeah.
does that make sense for you? Okay.
Actually, it's just whenever you guys want to get going, we can get going.
Oh, okay.
September's great.
September seem doable? I mean, I know you guys are going to say it's doable no matter what, but like in the big holistic scheme of things. Okay. All right. So let's come back to that in September if you guys are all right with that. Is that all you need from us on that then?
Yes.
Okay. All right. All right, new business, discussion of the new CDC school opening guidelines that were released last Friday before, I don't know, it's all getting jumbled. But let's have a conversation about that as it pertains to the fall, in comparison to, the discussion that we had over the summer. We had the listening session prior to tonight to give folks an additional opportunity for that to be, not just limited on 5 minutes and then us sitting here and not being able to respond. So it was more conversational in nature. And I think it was good. We heard from people on how they're feeling. I know board members have received emails, and here we are again, needing to talk about or clarifying rather, if need be, what we're doing about fall compared to what we had decided on summer. We had talked about masks are currently optional. Personal preference at the school. They were not required for summer school or summer activities. That is where we had that. We've been planning for normal school for fall. That part has not changed in terms of 5 days a week. Some of the other things, I'm just trying to briefly recap what we got in the listening session so that everybody has the benefit of that. Some other things that came up were concerns about, questions if the board would be requiring vaccines. And if they are requiring, which we did answer those questions about that, but then also questions about if people would be labeled based on, if children would be labeled based on vaccination status in any way, based on a concern of something that an organization in Lawrence did over the summer at a camp. So concerned about how that would or would not manifest in this district. We did have some parents that, we had a couple parents that talked about sort of the opposite view of that, and wanting to have the mask, but in terms of the majority of folks who spoke tonight anyway, at the listening session, I would characterize it, and Phil and Chris, please jump in if I am characterizing anything wrong. But the input that we received was people really asking for the ability to have personal choice on that. And so I just wanted to kind of report back to you guys in a group way. Phil and Chris, if you have anything to add, please feel free, because it was an hour and I'm trying to give you the summarized, kind of Reader's Digest version, but yet still do it justice with the viewpoints that were brought forward.
That's accurate.
Okay. So as for what we are doing or not doing, or what the board is prepared to discuss or vote on for this evening, this is where we need to have that, just open up that conversation for all 7 board members to be able to get a feel for where they're at. And then also, Mr. Dorothy, if there's anything, as we have this discussion, I'm going to step back for a bit. I just kind of wanted to set the table and now move away for a minute so everybody can discuss.
Are we supposed to be voting on anything tonight?
No, we don't. It did not, the agenda didn't say that we could vote. I mean, it's not that we can vote anytime we want to on any of it, but
because right now we
just had the discussion because I wasn't sure what everybody was ready to do. I think some people maybe are ready. My sense is that some people are ready and some people aren't. But it does state that it's a discussion. So that's why I just wanted to make sure the board had the same opportunity, particularly given that only 3 of us could attend that. I don't want anyone to be kind of at a disadvantage for that piece of it. So at least at the bare minimum, we need to have a discussion because school is coming. And not wait on that. So
yeah, I mean, to that point, I would like to see a vote tonight, because I know that there are a lot of families that probably both ways will do something with their kids this fall pending that. And I think that we owe it to the constituency to say what our plan is so that they can develop those plans to do what they feel is best for their families. So for me, I mean, I do plan on asking for a vote tonight on what we're planning on doing for the fall. And, we've said all along that we were very consistent with last year's. I would expect that then to continue into this year with the consistency, And I know what I'm going to say. I've got it written out what I'm going to say. So I'll open up to whoever else wants to say anything first.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
The benefit of having a parental choice when it comes to masks or continuing that policy we have currently in place now is it sort of creates 3 options for kids to attend school. We've got the remote option. We've got the in-person with a mask. We've got the in-person with no mask. So we have a broader continuum than we've had last year in many respects. And that ultimately still continues to trust our community to say, this is how I would appreciate my child being educated this year. Yeah, I apologize. Can't get it to work.
Hold on. Here, mine is way too loud, so take mine.
We can both use it from the middle there.
No, you just use it.
You're better with the mic than I am. Yeah.
This mic is on so loud, it'll pick me up.
Okay.
So you go ahead.
All right. So, oh man, that's really loud. Okay. So to paraphrase,
Yeah.
loud voice now. Having a remote enrollment option, having an in-person option with masks, having a in-person option with no masks provides parents with ample opportunity to enroll their child or their children in a comfortable fashion that they feel they can be successful in next year. And that, while it hasn't been perfect this summer and our limited enrollment, limited number of students, has been largely successful having the mask optional in places so far. And I think you guys all noticed as well, all 3 of my daughters are going to summer school this year with no mask, even though we're a very pro-mask family. We wanted to get them that socialization back after a year in remote school, but I appreciate the opportunity to dip our toes in the water when it comes to that kind of comfort level. And we may very well go back to masks in the future too. But anyway, that's my feelings on it. I'm sort of in alignment with Phil, kind of giving parents that option there, but I want to hear the voice of the rest of the board too.
Mm-hmm. Who else? Who else would like to? There it is.
See? Okay, yell into it.
Who else would like to discuss?
This has been an interesting night. Okay, who else would like to talk? Let's hear from everybody. Any concerns about any of that, or discussion points you'd like to add? Just want to make sure everybody has an opportunity.
Is mine working?
Yes.
Yeah. I think my only concern is right now, I would feel comfortable with it being the parent's choice. My concern is that, I guess that's not really a concern, it's just my thought is, my whole thing last year was consistency, so parents can make a choice. And then if something bad happens, I would want to go back on that. And I feel like then that consistency goes away. But right now I do feel comfortable saying you can make a choice. But that's how I would feel right now.
Mm-hmm.
I will jump in, and you all know that I'm going to say things that you're not going to like. And I don't want to say it, because what I heard was a lot of passion, and I admire that in the Baldwin City community. It's one of the things I love about the Baldwin City community. And you all were, everybody that got up and talked was very brave. And so I appreciate your input. Here's my concern. Viruses are tricky things. And this new variant makes me nervous. And it looks to me like the data suggests that the new variant seems to be spreading fairly rapidly in rural communities. I understand that we're a small community. But this virus doesn't know size of communities. The other thing I'm concerned about that causes me a little bit of pause is that the one criterion that people keep raising is a kid dying of this. I think death is a fairly extreme criterion to use, because it's my turn to talk. Because kids are getting this. They may not die from it, but we don't know what the long-term effects of this illness might be. Now, I'm not suggesting that kids aren't stressed out, and that there are ramifications of this whole last school year. We're all stressed out. there have been ramifications for all of us. But I would say as a board, we don't have a magic wand to say, okay, it's all over, right? We're just gonna go back to normal and everything's gonna be wonderful. If we could do that, I would be in full support of that. But again, I keep going back to the science and that cases of this new variant are increasing at a fairly rapid rate. And I'm concerned about it.
Order, please. We gave extra time to listen to people, and during the board meeting, that is the time, this is a board discussion. So Tony, if you have.
Yeah.
If you have.
I hear you, Pat. I hear it, right? What I didn't hear in the comments that people were making were a lot of scientists who study biology for a living because they work, excuse me, sir, they work at the CDC or they work for our county health department. And so to ignore their advice without any regard to it, I'm not saying we have to follow it totally, but the proposals that have been put forth is we don't listen to them at all because it's all bogus, it's all political, it's all made up. I'm not sure if I can go that far. And so I want you to hear what I'm saying. I've struggled with this all day long because I knew this discussion was coming up. And your voices are clear as to what you want to have happen. However, I'm concerned about the overall safety of the school district and the kids that are in the school district. And that includes their not only their mental health, because I understand that's a concern, but it's also their physical health. And this is a dangerous virus and it's rearing its head again. And that makes me nervous as a policy maker to say, oh, everything's going to be okay. This new variant is not going to come to Baldwin City. It very well could. And so I'm always going to be a little bit more cautious when it comes to kids' health than saying, let's just throw them all back in there. Now, I'm all for personal decisions about wearing masks. And I think that's great. The problem is with a virus, your health decisions impact my health. And so to just say everybody can make their own decisions about it and it's their own individual decisions, it turns out to be sort of a community decision. And every kid in that classroom is going to be affected by the decisions that individual kids make. 5 minutes. We aren't limited by time.
Time out, Tony, this is the time. So how it works, just as a reminder of being kind and following the rules. Okay, we don't have time limits. This is a time for board discussion. So Tony, go ahead. Sorry, if you have more, I just want to make sure.
I want to make sure that we're consistent because what we hear from the community is, boy, we appreciate the work you guys put into this. We appreciate the thought you put into it. I would like to honor that, right? We allow you all to speak and I honor your perspectives and I want to listen to them. But it has to be reciprocated as well.
And so we've heard from everyone so far. Does anyone else have anything they'd like to add? Because we can take the time we need to talk this through. We've done it before. We don't hear a TikTok in your mind. Let's just have a conversation. And if someone needs to speak again, we do that. Andy, go ahead.
I want to maintain the choice option for parents. I share your concerns, Tony. I'm worried about Delta increase. And I get offended whenever anybody quotes death stats per kid. I'm not just worried about death. There are a lot of long-term repercussions that we don't fully understand, especially for kids with asthma and so on. But I've been thinking about all day, what's the difference between us saying masks are optional and us saying people who aren't vaccinated should wear them? Because we're not going to be policing and collecting data on that. So is it really a concrete, on the ground distinction?
My takeaway on that is, I think that would be kind of a slippery slope Because
No, I agree.
Yeah, if you
I
say
don't-
that you're gonna check.
I'm saying I don't want to
Yeah,
police
okay,
it.
good, okay,
No.
good, yeah, okay, good.
He was saying it over
We're not going
Rockaway,
there.
like how do you
We're not
even?
going there. What,
Mhm.
I think when the complexities comes out, when you consider that if we are going on vaccination rates, for instance, that we have to have, well, all the elementary kids would have to continue to wear masks until that's approved to that age level, which is going to be a big concern for a lot of families as well. But yeah, it's just, it's not an easy decision by any means. It's an easy conversation to have, but I appreciate that we're having it again. But yeah, but I'll let others share too. But.
I'll go. I think, our job really is education. And, part of that and making sure people have education safely. I feel like what we had last year was the very best that we could do, but was woefully wanting by demonstrated by the survey with all of the MAPS testing going down, kids talking about how miserable they feel, that kind of stuff. And I think the one thing we can all agree on, it's a very polarizing subject, and there's science that supports both sides, and I don't think that I'm going to be able to convince anybody who thinks opposite of me, however that is, or they're going to be able to convince me otherwise. So I think it is very polarizing, which I think then leads to the idea of having, like Chris was saying, the idea of having parents' choice be a big portion of that, because then you do give the option for, if somebody is very fearful of COVID and its repercussions, they have the option to stay home, or they have the option to wear a mask, versus somebody who's not fearful of that or is willing to take on that additional risk in their life to say, I don't want to wear a mask, I want to be normal, to then be able to be that, and Tony, you mentioned the idea that it's a community thing and that somebody's choice to wear a mask affects you. But I think the other side of that is also true also, that with saying that if there's a mask mandate, that affects the people that don't want to wear masks. So there is that kind of back and forth that affects both sides, no matter which way you decide to go. But I think that for me personally, the very best option is to make it a parent or student choice on what to do. We talked a little bit about the idea that they're about the studies that are out there. I think I asked Dan Partridge when he was in here, where's the study that talks about the school that's an hour south of us that stayed out of masks the entire last year, that shows all of the bad consequences they had? Because I've seen the bad consequences we've had for doing what we've done, but I've not seen any studies or anything that actually says, hey, look, this school in southern Kansas that stayed out of masks all year last year had all these bad outcomes. I've seen the bad outcomes, based on the results of that survey and the testing that show that we had a bad outcome from what we did. And I don't want to replicate that this year. And I want it to be something where we have options for people to wear a mask if they want to wear a mask, not wear a mask if they don't want to wear a mask. So I feel like we tried the CDC guidelines and paid a significant cost for that. And I haven't seen the benefit. I mean, we still had kids get quarantined. We still had kids that missed school. We still had all of the bad problems that go along with having COVID. And I didn't see a huge benefit to doing the things that we did. So, I mean, I'm very strongly in the camp of making a masks an optional for students.
Other discussion? Susan?
Yeah.
Do you have anything you want to
I'm also, I'm also in favor of parent choice based on the summer school experience that we've had. I also want to make it clear that I'm not sure what statistic you're talking about the bad outcomes.
Well,
because the KCTC survey, if that's what you're talking about, was about the pandemic. It wasn't about wearing masks causes depression.
No, I just mean that, about the pandemic in general, having to be out of school, having to be in hybrid school, having to be wearing masks, all of the things that go along with the pandemic that we had to do. Now, all of those outcomes, I think are secondary to the pandemic, but primarily, I think those outcomes are based on our response to the pandemic. It wasn't, the kids didn't get bad grades and have feelings of wishing to be inside all the time because they were sick with COVID. It's because they were out of school, or they were having to wear masks, or they were hybrid, or they didn't get to wrestle, or they didn't get to see their friends for prom.
Or they experienced the stress of their family and whatever was economic, impact was happening with that. Right. So I just
I don't want to perpetuate the narrative that we made a bad decision, because it was across the state that the depression rate increased. And it wasn't just Baldwin. We made a bad decision, so we have more depressed kids.
Yeah, I don't think we made a bad decision. I think we made the only decision that we could with the information that we had at the time. But I think we have a lot more information now, so I don't want to repeat that.
Understood.
Just a few things. Most certainly, I've sent you a lot of information today, so you can see the whole picture of it and recommendations and so on. I did spend at length time talking with Lisa Patrick today and about how we should approach this for this coming year. Most certainly, we did this summer. The mask, the district mask mandate ended with the last day of school, and we decided we'd move forward without that and allow it to be optional to wear masks, which could have happened forever if somebody wanted to wear a mask to school. So in talking with her, based on the numbers of kids that we've had get COVID or not get COVID, and the fact that any of our junior high and high school kids have the option to get the vaccine. There's no vaccine for the younger kids yet, but I believe it's coming September, or October. Again, it'll be parents' choice on whether family's choice on that. My belief would be that we would not ever require a COVID vaccination for anybody. It should be a family choice. We also are not going to identify any kids whether they got vaccinated or didn't get vaccinated. That's not what we're going to do. We wouldn't do that. So my feeling is, and what Lisa and I agreed with after we had much discussion, was that we feel like we should at least try to start the school year with a normal situation, with parents being able to choose the optional things, or being able to choose, I'm not comfortable with that at all, and they can go to the virtual option. But we start the year this year, and we see how it goes. If it goes great and we're not having lots of problems, then we just keep rolling, because that's preferred. That's where we wanted to be all along. But most certainly we had to make choices based on the information that we were given. So I guess my recommendation from me is to try and start the school year in as normal a position as we can. That still means we're doing lots of hand washing. We're still sanitizing. We still got lots of hand sanitizer in the buildings, but we move forward with that on the basis it is up to you if you want to wear a mask or not in the school. I mean, that's just where I'm at after we've gone through this whole thing, and I've seen how summer school has gone, which made me nervous. But most certainly, we have got to get back to normal sometime. The question is, when is that? And I take, Tony, I take your point that the variant is going. We don't know exactly how that's going to affect us, but Lisa's conversation with me was we had more staff that ended up getting COVID through the year than we had students that got COVID, especially at the elementary level. We had very few kids that actually got it at the elementary level. I hope it stays that way. So I guess what I'm saying is we need to try it and move forward with it, and then adjust if we have to. There's no way I can sit here tonight and guarantee we'll never be back in masks again. And I know people don't like that, but at the same time, I think we try and see if it works. And then we'll adjust if we have to.
Thank you for that. And I'm wondering whether it would be helpful to have a discussion about a threshold in which should we move forward with a mask optional policy? Is there a threshold in which we hit, I don't know, 15% positivity rate or something? I mean, did you and Lisa talk about that? Or the county would shut us down? Or, I mean,
we didn't do that. Most certainly right now, Mr. Martin is correct. The school board does decide whether or not we do masks or we do whatever mitigation is. Most certainly it's not going to come from the state and it's not going to come from the county other than recommendations. They will give us recommendations. And I don't know that we should ignore those completely, but at the same time, it's the board's choice on what they would like to do. So that's where it is. I don't know that we can set a threshold. I think it has to be monitored. Most certainly, I will listen to Lisa because Lisa will be on top of it every day as far as if we start having cases in the school and how we're being affected. The question is the quarantining part. You know, who do we quarantine or not? Because most certainly we're not going to really know who's been vaccinated or not. And that may go through contact tracing. She confidentially may ask that question. Whether she gets a correct answer or not, we don't know that, but we're not going to go track that down. I don't think as a school district we should get in the middle of that. With that said, I think any motion, you need to be careful on the immunizations because most certainly we've got a bunch of immunizations that are required by the state. There is a process, there's a waiver, most certainly, but I don't want to in general say we're not going to enforce an immunization policy because there's one in place already at the state level. So.
Can I say something? Has everyone had a chance to say what they would like to say before I think we're kind of moving to a place that maybe we'd like to structure some sort of motion, but I don't want to, sometimes things come as other conversation happens and I don't want you to feel like it's a one shot and done. Okay. I guess I haven't really said anything at this meeting related to this, and I don't want to say much because it's all been covered. It is a double-sided coin, definitely. It's sad to me that how polarizing it has been, but I'm still hopeful that we can see the best in one another as a community as we figure it out. And I also know that even with the differences of opinion that have been represented, that each of those are based in whether you agree with the conclusion that someone comes at on that. I know that every single person up here cares about all the kids. And I think that many of us lie awake last year when things were new, worrying that one of our choices could cause the death of a child. I know that kept me awake. And it isn't just about our own children, it's all of our children. We care. I've taught many of the students, have one here tonight. So proud of you. I'm about to do a happy dance and humiliate myself. But the point is that even if we disagree about where someone's at, it's not because there's an intention of harm. There's only ever been intention to show active concern for fellow community members. And we just have different ideas about how to go about doing that. And that's okay. We come at solutions when we listen to each other and we're kind and we talk it through. So for me, the cost benefit analysis of knowing more now than we knew last year, I was like, I'm not a doctor. If they're telling us to wear masks, okay, we'll do that. Where it is now for children under 12, it's not that it's zero. And but the cost benefit analysis of those, early learning opportunities, and what we are seeing about in areas where there have been masked versus not masked for younger kids, I've not seen a huge difference, and I've been following it like it's my paid job. Sorry. So I'm comfortable with parent choice to I want to reiterate what Mr. Dorothy said because it came up in the listening session. There's never been a conversation on this board, and I've never heard or received a single email that is in favor of enforced vaccination or labeling of any type of children, segregating kids. Have been through a lot, and we have work to do. That isn't just about mask or no mask. Someone made that comment earlier in the listening session, and it was made again during public comment. I believe it was Tori. Sorry, I don't have that note right in front of me, but I mean, we have stuff to do. So if we're ready to make a motion on that, if you have something drawn up, unless anybody else has something they'd like to add, we can do that.
I'll make the motion then. I'd motion we begin the 2021 school year in an identical fashion to the 2019 school year.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. Phil moved, Susan seconded that to begin the 21-22 school year as we did the 2019 school year. That makes it very clear, right? Yeah. Okay. Is there any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion as presented, please say aye and raise your right hand. Aye. Anyone opposed?
Okay.
Thank you. Motion carries 6-1. Thank you, guys. All right, board member input, co-op report, Chris and Susan.
In lighter news, we'll talk about the co-op report. I can find my notes here. I'll be pretty brief this evening here about this one. The main thing is that for strategic planning, I think last time I mentioned we were going to be embarking on that same endeavor with the special education cooperative. We're actually going to contract with Greenbush as well. And I think Michael Kuntz is going to do that same strategic planning with that co-op group. And again, that'll involve the Wellsville community and the Eudora community and how we envision that organization looking and providing services to each of those 3 school districts as well. So TBD on when that will start, but probably sometime like in September, October as well. But in addition to that, it's favorable news when it comes to special education financing right now. We're getting some good traction at the federal level and the state level in terms of actually funding special education to the requisite amounts. But I don't want to be too hopeful about that because I always get hopeful and it never happens. So, so at least I'm letting you guys know that there's a lot of conversations right now about from U.S. senators and state senators alike that are interested in actually funding special education to the appropriate levels that it's legislated to be funded at. So to be determined on that as well, but I'll keep you posted as things develop there. Anything else, Susan, from the board?
I was on vacation.
Oh, that's right. You're on vacation. Okay, that's good. Well, that's it.
Okay, thank you. Miscellaneous. Anyone have anything for miscellaneous? Okay. Superintendent's report. Yes. Check. Okay, I move we enter into executive session to discuss personnel with Mr. Dorothy pursuant to the exception for non-elected personnel under COMA, and the open meeting will resume in the PAC. It's 8:53. What? 15 minutes, and that would be math. So that would be 9:08 p.m. Is there a second? Second. Okay, Carrie seconded. All those in favor, please say aye and raise your right hand. Aye. Motion carries 7-0. Executive session until 9:08, I think I said, Megan. Okay, thank you.
have it taken care of. Okay, there, and this is what I like that. And I just need to sign that one. Okay, thank you. Keep me straight. Okay, we'll call this meeting back to order. And all we have left to do this evening is approve we have the personnel report. And that's the standard personnel report. We have the supplemental and then the fall or Rule 10. There's 3 attachments in there to make sure everybody had a chance to review those. We can do a motion to accept all 3. That's our final thing we need to do. And sign the resolutions that we approved during the consent agenda, please.
I move that we approve the personal reports as presented.
Second.
Okay, Chris has moved and Phil has seconded that we approve the 3 reports as submitted, presented. All those in favor, please say aye and raise your right hand. Aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carries 7-0. So all we have left to do is sign some stuff and a motion for adjournment.
I motion we adjourn once we are done signing.
Thank you. Perfect.
I'm for it. Is it too late?
It's not too late. All right, Phil has moved and Andy has seconded that we adjourn and upon signatures of resolutions. All those in favor, please say aye and raise your right hand.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Thanks, everyone. Meeting adjourned,
I feel like, thank
9:10.
God for YouTube.